In the bustling village of Tinkertown, where every house had a chimney puffing out steam and gears turned endlessly on rooftops, there lived an eccentric inventor named Reginald. Reginald had a wild mane of curly hair that seemed to have a life of its own and glasses perpetually askew on his nose. Known for his boundless enthusiasm and equally boundless mishaps, Reginald was a beloved, if somewhat chaotic, figure in Tinkertown. Reginald's home was a marvel of inventive chaos. It was crammed with half-finished gadgets, springs and cogs strewn across every surface, and blueprints pinned haphazardly to the walls. The centerpiece of his workshop was his pride and joy, the automatic everything machine, a device he claimed could do anything and everything with the press of a button. In theory, it was a revolutionary invention. In practice, it was a source of endless hilarity. One sunny morning, Reginald decided it was time to unveil his masterpiece to the public. He set up a stage in the village square, inviting everyone to witness the wonders of the automatic everything machine. The villagers gathered with a mix of excitement and trepidation, eager to see what new amusement Reginald would provide. "Ladies and gentlemen," Reginald announced with a flourish, "behold the future of convenience. The automatic everything machine will cook your breakfast, clean your house, and even walk your dog, all at the touch of a button." With great fanfare, he pressed the big red button on the machine. The contraption whirred to life, gears spinning and lights flashing. For a moment, everything seemed to be working perfectly. The machine produced a plate of scrambled eggs, neatly folded a shirt, and even tossed a ball for a nearby dog. The crowd oohed and awed, impressed by the apparent success. But then, as always with Reginald's inventions, things took an unexpected turn. The machine started to sputter and shake, emitting strange noises. Before anyone could react, it began spewing out objects in rapid succession: a loaf of bread, a pair of socks, a rubber chicken, and a cloud of bubbles. The dog, thrilled by the chaos, chased the rubber chicken around the square, barking excitedly. Reginald frantically tried to regain control, but the machine had a mind of its own. It continued to spit out random items: a teapot, a stack of books, and, inexplicably, a small inflatable pool. The villagers couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity, and soon the entire square was in uproarious amusement. Just when it seemed the chaos couldn't escalate further, the machine produced a stream of brightly colored confetti, coating the crowd in a festive shower. Reginald, now covered in confetti himself, threw up his hands in surrender. "Well, folks," he said with a sheepish grin, "it appears the automatic everything machine has a sense of humor." The villagers cheered and clapped, thoroughly entertained by the spectacle. Despite the machine's unpredictable performance, they appreciated Reginald's unending optimism and creative spirit. After all, life in Tinkertown was never dull with Reginald around. Undeterred by the machine's quirks, Reginald continued to tinker and invent. His next project was the Instagarden, a device designed to instantly grow plants and vegetables. He imagined lush gardens springing up overnight, providing fresh produce for the entire village. With typical enthusiasm, Reginald invited the villagers to witness the first test of the Instagarden. He planted a row of seeds in the town square, positioned the device, and pressed the activation button. The machine hummed to life, and to everyone's amazement, green shoots began to sprout from the ground within seconds. But true to form, the device didn't stop there. The plants grew taller and taller, transforming into gigantic vegetables. Pumpkins the size of carriages, tomatoes as big as barrels, and cucumbers that resembled tree trunks towered over the square. The villagers stared in awe and amusement as the square was transformed into a surreal garden of giants. Reginald, beaming with pride, declared, "Behold the future of agriculture. Fresh produce for everyone." He hadn't accounted for the practicalities of harvesting such enormous crops, but the villagers didn't mind. They organized a festival around the colossal vegetables, turning the mishap into a celebration. The Tinkertown Giant Vegetable Festival became an annual event, attracting visitors from neighboring villages who came to marvel at the oversized produce and enjoy the festivities. Reginald's invention, while not quite as intended, brought joy and a sense of community to Tinkertown. Encouraged by the unexpected success of the Instagarden, Reginald set his sights on an even more ambitious project, the time travel toaster. He theorized that if he could harness the power of breakfast, he could create a device that would allow people to travel through time. The concept was delightfully absurd, but in Tinkertown, anything seemed possible. After months of tinkering, Reginald was ready to unveil the time travel toaster. He invited the villagers to his workshop for a demonstration. The toaster, a sleek, chrome-plated contraption, sat proudly on his workbench. Reginald explained that by toasting a piece of bread and selecting a date on the dial, one could travel to any point in history. With bated breath, Reginald placed a slice of bread in the toaster and set the dial to the year 1776. The toaster hummed, glowed, and with a flash of light, the bread disappeared. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, in a puff of smoke, the bread reappeared, now slightly charred and bearing the image of a colonial-era penny. The villagers gasped in astonishment. While not quite time travel, the toaster had somehow imprinted the historical moment onto the bread. Reginald, ever the optimist, declared it a partial success. "Well, it seems we can at least make history delicious," he quipped, and the villagers burst into laughter. Despite its limitations, the time travel toaster became a local sensation. People brought slices of bread to Reginald, requesting images of different historical events. The resulting history toast became a quirky collector's item in Tinkertown, adding another layer of charm to the village's already rich tapestry of eccentricity. Reginald's adventures in invention continued, each project bringing its own blend of chaos and comedy. His unyielding enthusiasm and willingness to embrace failure made him a beloved figure in Tinkertown. Through every mishap, he demonstrated that the true spirit of invention lay not in perfection but in the joy of creation and the laughter shared along the way. And so, in the heart of Tinkertown, amidst the turning gears and steaming chimneys, Reginald found his place. His inventions, while often unpredictable, brought endless amusement and a sense of wonder to the village. Tinkertown thrived on the inventive chaos that Reginald embodied, proving that sometimes, the best creations are the ones that don't go according to plan.
Once upon a time in the tiny town of Corkyville, lived a very peculiar man named Albert Oddbottom. Albert wasn't peculiar because he had 3 heads or walked on his hands, no. Albert was peculiar because he had the unique ability to misplace literally anything in the most absurd places. His socks would end up in the refrigerator, his toothpaste in the mailbox, and once, he found his cat, Whiskers, lounging comfortably in his toolbox. Albert worked as a librarian in the Corkyville Library, a job that required a great deal of organization, something Albert spectacularly lacked. The library was an old, creaky building filled with towering shelves of books, each a maze that seemed to stretch into infinity. Despite his penchant for losing things, Albert loved books and the worlds they contained. One morning, Albert arrived at the library and found an odd-looking package on his desk. It was wrapped in bright yellow paper with a note attached, "To Albert Oddbottom, with love from Aunt Agatha." Aunt Agatha was known for her strange gifts, so Albert was both excited and apprehensive. He tore open the package to reveal a small, peculiar-looking device with buttons, dials, and a tiny screen that displayed the words, "Misplace-O-Matic 3000. Albert's eyes widened with curiosity. He fiddled with the device, turning it over and inspecting it. There was a big red button in the center that practically begged to be pressed. Without thinking, Albert pressed the button. The device buzzed, whirred, and emitted a cloud of purple smoke. When the smoke cleared, Albert found himself in a completely different library, a library of unimaginable chaos. Books floated in midair, library carts zoomed around on their own, and the Dewey Decimal System was in utter disarray. Albert quickly realized that he was not in Corkyville Library anymore. He had somehow transported to the interdimensional library of lost things, a magical place where all misplaced items from across the universe ended up. As Albert wandered through the endless aisles, he bumped into a peculiar creature. It was about the size of a rabbit, but had the face of a squirrel and the tail of a peacock. The creature introduced itself as Fizzlewiz, the librarian of this chaotic realm. "Welcome to the interdimensional library of lost things," Fizzlewiz chirped. "I see you brought the Misplace-O-Matic 3000. It's been ages since we've had a visitor from the human world." Albert explained his situation, and Fizzlewiz nodded understandingly. "The Misplace-O-Matic 3000 is a rare device. it doesn't just misplace things. It can also find them, but it requires a specific sequence of events to unlock that feature. Albert's eyes sparkled with hope. What do I need to do? Fizzle was pointed to a towering stack of books that seemed to wobble precariously. You must find the Great Book of Misplacements. It contains the sequence you need, but be warned. It's hidden deep within the most unpredictable section of the library, the section of spontaneous disappearances. Albert, determined to return to his world, set off on his quest. He navigated through the maze of floating books, dodged zooming library carts, and even had a close encounter with a rogue bookmark that tried to stick itself to his forehead. Eventually, he reached the section of spontaneous disappearances. This section was unlike anything Albert had ever seen. Books appeared and disappeared at random, and the aisles twisted and turned in impossible ways. Albert had to think quickly and move even quicker to avoid being misplaced himself. After what felt like hours, he spotted a glowing book perched on a high shelf. That must be it, he exclaimed. Using a nearby ladder, Albert carefully climbed up and grabbed the Great Book of Misplacements. As soon as he touched it, the book stopped glowing and began to hum softly. Albert opened the book and found a page with the sequence of buttons and dials needed to activate the Misplace-O-Matic 3000's finding feature. With the sequence memorized, Albert made his way back to Fizzlewiz, who was waiting with a knowing smile. Well done, Albert. Now, follow the sequence and press the big red button again. Albert took a deep breath, carefully input the sequence, and pressed the button. The Misplace-O-Matic 3000 buzzed, whirred, and emitted another cloud of purple smoke. When the smoke cleared, Albert found himself back in the Quirkyville library, holding the now silent device. He looked around and saw that everything was as it should be. The books were neatly arranged, the library carts were stationary, and Whiskers was sleeping peacefully in his favorite spot. Albert let out a sigh of relief and smiled. From that day on, Albert kept the Misplace-O-Matic 3000 in a safe place, his top desk drawer, and never misplaced anything important again. Well, almost never. Whiskers did end up in the refrigerator once more, but that's a story for another day. And so, life in Quirkyville returned to its usual, delightful peculiarity, with Albert Oddbottom at the center of it all, ever ready to embrace whatever whimsical adventure came his way.